There are hobbies and activities to fit every lifestyle. From those seeking moderate excitement to those seeking high adventure. To serve the growing sport of skydiving, there are over 300 active skydiving centers and clubs throughout the United States. These drop zones operate well over 500 skydiving aircraft, referred to as jump planes. As a result, trained jump pilots are high in demand. Although no special training or endorsement is required by the FAA to become a jump pilot, thorough training is vital. As you will see, flying skydivers is demanding on the pilot. Pilots' awareness of safety and operational considerations are needed when flying skydivers. There is a wide variety of aircraft used for skydiving. The de Havilland Twin Otter, Casa 212, Cessna 182, and various other twin and turbine engine aircraft. The 182 is found at virtually every drop zone and is what most beginning jump pilots fly. We'll use the 182 for most of our examples. First, you need to know what sources of information are available regarding jump piloting. Here are some of the sources available. FAR Part 91, General Operating Flight Rules. Advisory Circular 9066, Recommended Standard Traffic Patterns. FAR Part 105, Parachute Jumping. Advisory Circular 105-2, Sport Parachute Jumping. United States Parachute Association or USPA's Skydivers Information Manual. USPA's Skydiving Aircraft Operations Manual. While having actual skydiving experience can be helpful, it is certainly not necessary. Let's examine some of the regulations that can affect you as a jump pilot. Whenever there is compensation for a flight, regardless if the pilot is being paid, that flight is considered a commercial operation by the FAA. Thus, nearly all jump flights are commercial operations, requiring the pilot to hold at least a commercial pilot certificate, along with current second-class medical certificate. All piston engine aircraft used in commercial operations are subject to 100-hour inspections, as well as annual inspections. For multi-engine and turbine aircraft, a manufacturer's maintenance program or other FAA-approved program is necessary. Nearly every aircraft requires some modification and FAA approval to serve as a jump plane. Common examples of aircraft modifications include removal of a cabin door, installation of a jump door or air deflector, added seat belts, installation of special steps or handholds for the jumpers. If the aircraft is certified by the manufacturer to fly with a door removed, then the procedures, conditions, and restrictions, if any, will be found in the Aircraft Flight Manual or Pilot's Operating Handbook. Otherwise, either a supplemental type certificate, an STC, or FAA field approval is necessary to fly without a door. Many jump planes have an in-flight door that can be completely opened and shut during flight. This modification also requires either an STC or FAA field approval. Door removal or modification approvals often have provisions that also require all occupants, including pilots, to wear a parachute if the door is open. Usually there are provisions that limit airspeed with the door open. These speeds must often be placarded. The speed limitations for Cessnas are usually between 80 and 110 miles per hour for door opening or flight with the door open. Many Cessnas also have an external step to facilitate jumper climb out. These too require either an STC or field approval. Since every skydiver is required to use a seatbelt, it is often necessary to add additional seatbelts and attach points. Larger planes, or those with an aft door for jumping, often have external steps and handrails to facilitate skydiving exits. Roll-up doors, or air deflectors, are also popular. All of these modifications require FAA approval. Whenever modified, a jump plane must have a revised weight and balance record that should be retained in the aircraft. Aircraft logbooks should reflect all modifications and contain copies of the STC or Form 337 for each modification. Pilots should be familiar with the instrument and equipment requirements for the type of flight. All aircraft may be subject to a minimum equipment list. Though considered to be commercial operations, skydiving flights are exempt from FAA certification requirements by FAR Part 119. This is the regulation that prescribes requirements for air carriers and commercial operators. As a result, jump operations are governed by FAR Part 91. Note that Part 119 restricts skydiving flights to operate within 25 miles of the departure airport. A jump pilot should be thoroughly familiar with Parts 91 and 105. We'll highlight some sections of the FARs. Part 91 allows skydivers to use the floor of an aircraft as a seat, provided there is a seat belt for each skydiver to use. Part 91 and Part 105 require that each emergency and reserve parachute on board is packed by a rigger within a prescribed period, currently 120 days. Part 91 requires a transponder for flight at or above 10,000 feet mean sea level, an altitude commonly exceeded by most jump planes. Jump pilots must maintain the same cloud clearance and visibility requirements as those for visual flight regulations. Below 10,000 feet, the pilot must have 3 miles of visibility and be at least 500 feet below, 1,000 feet above, and 2,000 feet horizontally from a cloud. At or above 10,000 feet, 5 miles of visibility and must be 1,000 feet below, 1,000 feet above, and 1 mile horizontally from any cloud. Part 105 holds the pilot responsible for ensuring the jumps do not create a hazard to air traffic or persons or property on the ground. Permission must be obtained from an airport manager before jumping over or onto an airport. This permission can be verbal. When jumping into Class A, B, C, or D airspace, authorization must be obtained from the Air Traffic Control ATC facility involved. This authorization can be obtained by telephone, though the facility may ask for the request to be in writing. When jumping into Class E and G airspace, the appropriate ATC facility must be notified beforehand. This is commonly accomplished with a telephone call. The information required for either ATC authorization or notification is currently found in Section 105.25. Many existing drop zones have already taken the necessary steps to obtain authorization or provide notification. Drop zones should also file a Notice to Airmen, a NOTAM, that allows flight service to disseminate drop zone information to other pilots. Drop zones with at least 4,000 annual jumps can file a Flight Data Center, FDC NOTAM, or Permanent NOTAM. This allows the drop zone to be listed in the FAA Airport Facility Directory and results in a parachute symbol being placed on the sectional chart next to the airport location. The information required to file the NOTAM is the same as that required for an ATC authorization and notification and is found in Part 105. Once airborne, the jump pilot must establish radio communications with the appropriate ATC facility, the one with airspace jurisdiction at jump run altitude, at least 5 minutes prior to the jump. This is primarily for the jump pilot to receive information from ATC about known traffic in the area. During a jump operation, Air Traffic Control advises the jump pilot of other aircraft in the vicinity of the jump plane. When advised of traffic prior to or during a jump run, the jump pilot must assess whether releasing the jumpers will compromise safety. If so, the jumpers must be held until the traffic is cleared.
29 Bravo has traffic. He's no factor. We're 2 minutes behind. 29 Bravo is looking. We're going around for another jump run.
Always communicate with ATC in terms of feet above mean sea level. MSL. Since skydivers speak in terms of feet above ground level, AGL, the pilot will often need to convert desired jump altitudes from AGL to above MSL for air traffic control. For a jump pilot, the most common ATC radio calls are the initial call. It is best to make the initial radio call to ATC as soon as radar coverage is available, though some ATC facilities prefer a later call due to workload. The initial call should indicate the expected jump run altitude in feet above MSL.
And Lakeland approach, Cessna 5829 Bravo, passing through 3,000 feet on the way to 10,000 with a load of jumpers.
The jump run call. Most ATC facilities prefer a 1-minute or 2-minute call from the pilot prior to jump run. Some prefer an earlier 5-minute call.
And Lakeland approach, Cessna 29 Bravo is 2 minutes to jump, 2 minutes for 29 Bravo.
The jumpers away call. Once all jumpers have departed, the pilot should advise ATC of the jump plane's descent.
Lakeland Center, jumpers away from 29 Bravo and descending. That's jumpers away, 29 Bravo.
The jumpers on the ground call. Part 105 requires a call to ATC when the skydivers reach the ground, but many facilities waive this call.
And Lakeland Center, 29 Bravo has all parachutes on the ground at Zephyr Hills.
Broadcasts on the Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, CTAF, are also good practice if ATC can be monitored at the same time. CTAF calls convey information about jump activity to locally based aircraft and aircraft inbound to the airport. The following CTAF calls should be made. The jump run call.
Zephyr Hills traffic, 29 Bravo is 2 minutes to jumpers away at 10,000 feet over Zephyr Hills, 2 minutes.
The jumpers away call.
Zephyr Hills traffic, 29 Bravo, jumpers away 10,000 feet and below over Zephyr Hills.
The parachutes over the airport call.
Zephyr Hills traffic, parachutes open over Zephyr Hills 3,000 feet and below over Zephyr Hills.
And the jumpers on the ground call.
Zephyr Hills traffic, all parachutes are on the ground at Zephyr Hills. All parachutes are on the ground.
Prior to the day's first flight, a jump pilot should have a current weather briefing, including winds aloft. Ensure a NOTAM is filed in accordance with FAR 105. Determine jump run direction and altitude. Be sure to convert AGL to MSL. The pre-flight inspection. Because jump planes undergo rigorous service, a good pre-flight inspection is crucial before the first flight each day. Be watchful for cracked, worn, or loosened components, especially around the spinner, engine cowling, and in-flight doors. Propellers should be checked for nicks and scratches, especially when operating on unpaved areas. Tires and brakes wear quickly, so it's important that they be inspected frequently. It is typical for oil consumption to be somewhat high when flying jumpers, so checking the oil quantity frequently is good practice. Many turbine and twin-engine aircraft have complex systems, like an auto feather system, that are often required to be checked prior to the first flight of the day. A jump plane's fuel quantity should be checked visually and frequently. Aircraft fuel gauges are only required to be accurate when tanks are empty. Most operators use a calibrated fuel stick to precisely determine the amount of fuel in each tank. Fuel drain should be sumped before first flight. Many Cessnas are susceptible to the entry and retention of water in the fuel tanks. Some Cessnas still retain flush fuel caps that allow water to enter the tanks. These should immediately be retrofitted. Why all the emphasis on fuel? Statistics show that a high percentage of jump plane accidents are the result of fuel exhaustion, fuel starvation, or fuel contamination. Only approved aviation fuels, as described in the aircraft flight manual, should be used in the aircraft. Autogas can be used in a 182, but only with a supplemental type certificate. In the case of turbine aircraft, K1 kerosene is not an approved fuel. An engine run-up and systems check are necessary before the first flight of the day. Additional checks throughout the day or when possible is good practice. Loading the aircraft. The primary concern with aircraft loading is to ensure that the aircraft stays within its weight and balance limitations. Weight and center of gravity should be calculated prior to each flight, starting with the aircraft empty weight and including the weight of each occupant and their associated gear, parachute, jumpsuit, helmet, etc. In practice, the drop zone office, also called the manifest, will often provide the pilot with the weight of each jumper. Concern about an aircraft's weight and center of gravity should be paramount, especially when flying jumpers. An overweight airplane has sluggish performance. An out-of-balance airplane that's also overweight may have controllability problems. A faltering engine or other distraction can cause loss of control. For multi-engine aircraft, proper weight and balance is even more critical. An aircraft that is overweight may not have sufficient single-engine climb performance. An aircraft that is loaded aft of its permitted center of gravity limit may not be able to maintain directional control with an engine out. Taxi. After loading, every occupant must be secured with a seatbelt or other approved restraint prior to taxi. Skydivers should keep seatbelts or restraints secured until at least 1,000 feet. Helmets, cameras, and any other equipment must be secured to prevent them from becoming projectiles in the cabin. If multiple jump planes are operating, constant vigilance for landing parachutes is necessary when taxiing and taking off. The takeoff. The takeoff is the most crucial phase of flight. If power is lost prior to liftoff or until nearly 1,000 feet up, a pilot's options are few, but immediate reaction is vital. Every pilot should begin the takeoff roll with the expectation that a power loss will occur. By being mentally prepared, your reaction time is quicker. With a power loss, a pilot's first and immediate reaction should be aircraft control. Pitch the aircraft down to maintain airspeed. Unpowered, the aircraft's tendency will be to pitch upward, lose airspeed, and ultimately stall. Any delay in nosing over exacerbates the situation, making it critical. Takeoffs are often at or near gross weight, which means longer takeoff runs and shallower climb outs. Following the initial takeoff climb, the aircraft should always be flown so that a power-off glide back to the airport or to another nearby airport can always be made if needed. In Cessnas, the fuel selector is in a location where it can be inadvertently bumped while jumpers are loading. A pre-roll check should be made prior to every takeoff. Rear to forward, fuel, trim, flap settings, right to left, mixture, prop, throttle, carburetor heat. Besides safety, drop zones are concerned with operational efficiency. Power settings and climb airspeeds are established to give the quickest climb to altitude. The resulting climb angles often impede the front view of the flight deck. One technique is to use shallow climbing turns, usually to the left, which also serve as clearing turns. During a climb, it's best to avoid busy Victor Airways or other established arrival or departure routes. A quick check of the sectional, instrument chart, and area approach plates can help determine the location of busy airspace. Also, by visiting your local air traffic control facility, you can get a good idea of air traffic in the area. Monitor power settings and engine temperatures to maximize the climb performance, but minimize engine overheating. Refer to the pilot's operating handbook for recommended climb speeds. Time your climb so that you are turning on jump run as you reach jump run altitude. The jump run. Every jump plane has a target speed or a small speed range for the jump run. For Cessnas, it's generally between 80 and 90 miles per hour. On reaching jump run altitude, the pilot needs to level off while ensuring that the aircraft does not gain airspeed. Find the power setting that maintains the jump run altitude and the target airspeed. Spotting. The spot is the skydiver's predetermined exit point over the ground. It is influenced by the speed and direction of winds from jump run altitude to the ground. The spot is nearly always upwind of the intended landing area, giving the skydiver wide latitude to run with the wind or hold into the wind for greater landing accuracy. Winds at altitude can have a large influence on the spot. A 60-mile-per-hour wind at 12,500 AGL can move a group of free-falling jumpers a mile from their exit point, since they are in the wind for about 1 minute, assuming the wind is constant from 12,500 to 3,000 feet. In reality, winds aloft are not constant, but still do influence the exit and opening point. Winds near the ground can affect a skydiver under an open canopy to a great degree. For jump run, the jump pilot's primary responsibility is to place the aircraft at the correct altitude and heading at the start of the jump run. The use of GPS can be a big help. Because a jump pilot cannot see directly below the aircraft, once on jump run, a jump master or other skydiver will line up the aircraft, fine-tuning the track over the ground and calling for the exit. With student skydivers, the jump master will often call for a cut, requiring reduced throttle. The pilot should slowly reduce throttle to a partial power setting. This cuts down on prop blast and allows the student an easier climb out onto the step. It is vital that the pilot maintain a healthy margin above stall speed. You do not want an aircraft to stall on jump run. Pitch down and add power if necessary to maintain airspeed. Experienced jump pilots can help determine power settings and airspeeds preferred by various groups of experienced skydivers. On jumper climb-out, the pilot may need additional control inputs to counter the effect of having jumpers on the step, whether with one person or several. As the first jumper climbs out, the use of opposite aileron may be necessary to maintain wings level. Be prepared to neutralize controls after the jumpers exit. When jumpers have exited, notify ATC with the jumpers away call and advise them of your next maneuver. Most twin and turbine jump planes have an in-flight roll-up door or deflector toward the rear of the aircraft, well removed from the pilot. Many have a light system or toggle switch with lights installed by which the pilot and jump master or spotter can communicate about the jump run or necessary corrections. Many jump planes with a rear door can have their aft loading limit exceeded if too many jumpers gather in or near the door on jump run. Some require a minimum number of jumpers to remain forward of a marking until the first jumpers have exited. Placards and frequent pilot briefings should be used to remind skydivers of such limitations. The descent. When flying a Cessna with an in-flight door, a quick jab of the left rudder will disrupt the airflow over the door and cause it to drop. The pilot needs to make sure it is then securely latched. The jump pilot sets up a descent consistent with safety and guarding against engine shock cooling. Each operator will have a preferred airspeed for descent. For Cessnas, descent speeds are in the 140 to 150 mile-per-hour range. With a partial power setting, this should result in a 1,000 to 1,200 foot per minute descent rate. As you descend, be sure to visually scan for other air traffic in the area. You don't want any surprises. Prepare to use carburetor heat during descent. Cessnas in particular are susceptible to the formation of carburetor ice during long, low-powered descents, even on hot summer days. Descending turns serve well as clearing turns. Having all exterior lights on helps in making sure other pilots see you. At all times, including entry into the airport traffic pattern, the aircraft should be in position to glide to the airport after suffering a power loss. Many larger aircraft can safely descend to the ground faster than the skydivers. When doing so, the pilot should ensure that the aircraft remains clear of the skydiver's airspace. Additionally, an outside visual scan for other traffic is crucial. Reloading. To reduce the potential for propeller strikes, it is best to shut down the aircraft prior to reboarding. However, to limit start cycle and engine wear problems, many drop zones prefer to keep engines running, particularly at high volume locations. This can be safely done if deliberate safety measures are in place to prevent anyone from wandering into turning propellers. Remember that many first-time jumpers and observers may have never been around an aircraft before. Refueling. Piston aircraft should always be shut down and all passengers deplaned for refueling. Hot fueling. For turbine aircraft, the FAA has no restrictions on rapid fueling, which is the practice of fueling while engines are operating. However, hot fueling demands utmost planning and caution. The Parachute Industry Association has developed a technical standard for hot fueling, TS-122, which should be followed. It recommends ensuring no one aboard the aircraft except for a qualified pilot at the controls. Fueling in an area that's removed from waiting skydivers and spectators. Use of proper bonding and fueling techniques that eliminate the potential for fire and spillage. Ensure the avoidance of rotating propellers. And having trained personnel nearby with fire extinguishers who are prepared and ready for potential emergencies. Emergencies. Jump planes are susceptible to the same types of in-flight emergencies as other aircraft, but they can also bring additional scenarios to the situation. Flight manuals and experienced jump pilots and operators should be consulted for specific procedures. No matter what the emergency, the jump pilot's first and primary response is to fly the aircraft, maintaining airspeed and control. Too many pilots have been distracted by events and allowed the aircraft to stall, often with disastrous consequences. Even a forced landing at 50 to 60 miles per hour in rough terrain should allow most occupants to escape serious injury. This is especially critical with a takeoff power loss. A pilot can reduce the potential for surprise and increase response time by beginning every takeoff roll with the mental expectation that the aircraft will lose power. Some of the more common jump plane accidents are caused by fuel exhaustion, starvation. Jump planes often fly with reduced fuel to accommodate heavier payloads while maintaining weight and balance limits. Pilots must check fuel levels often. Carburetor icing. The 182's Continental 0470 is a sturdy, reliable engine. However, its carburetor is highly susceptible to ice formation, even during hot summer days. Pilots should use carburetor heat often, especially during descent. Inadvertent deployment. Premature parachute deployments can cause catastrophic damage and injury. They happen most often when skydivers are positioning themselves in or near the door prior to exit. Prevention is best accomplished by gear checks prior to boarding and jump run. Jump pilots should become familiar with parachute automatic activation devices, AADs, some of which can be activated in the aircraft during a fast descent. A jump pilot often has the option, if high enough, to empty the aircraft. Special operations. Specific procedures and regulations address special types of jump operations, such as demonstration jumps, high-altitude jumps, and formation flights. It is best to obtain a briefing from a jump pilot experienced with these operations. Flying skydivers can be a rewarding way to build flight time, but it demands thorough training and constant attention. Be sure to learn all you can from experienced jump pilots and skydiving operators. Contact the U.S. Parachute Association for the locations, skydiving centers, and more specific information concerning jump plane operations.